the door off its hinges! Look at this! This is a... Oh my God! Look at the size of this human being! Or is that a human being?
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for Prattle.
Welcome to A Clone in the Dark, a podcast that attempts to untangle the dark web that enshrouds the Clone Saga's most divisive character, Ben Reilly. I'm your co-host Spider-Dan, and I'm joined by the Clone Tones, Tony Farina and Tony Holt Jr., to make some, if any, sense of Marvel's most controversial and convoluted storyline. So we're back for number 3. We're running into this big event. There's going to be a lot of editorial changes going on in this period, so I think we're going to start seeing some of the problems, some of the storytelling problems, some of the organizational issues. But it's all about Kaine. Kaine is here, and he makes a big impression with his choices and his mission. But is he here to help the Spider-Man, or is he here to hurt them? We don't really know at this point, but we are going to find out. So we're going to be talking about 3 different storylines: Web of Life, Web of Death, and spoilers, huge spoilers for this third storyline, Funeral for an Octopus. So we're going to talk about those. Before we get started, before we get into this, welcome back, Tony and Tony, the Clone Tones. How are we?
Here. I'm feeling good. I was gonna dress up in my wrestling gear, but I decided not to. We will save that for one of the characters who arrives later and leave that for her and all of her glory.
Yes, absolutely. We've talked about Kaine being an inspiration for wrestlers as well before. But before we get started, there's 2 bits of things I don't have to do. I'm so glad I don't have to tee up anything this one, because I've had to do all the backstory for each of the other entries of the podcast. But this one, I don't have too much to say before we get stuck in there. So first of all, Math has sent us another lovely bit of fan art. So as you mentioned, Tony, in the last episode, the fridging of Aunt May, we talked about Judas Traveler, and he's sent us a lovely bit of work, and it's Judas Traveler helping Aunt May out of the fridge, unfridging her.
What a lovely man.
Her. What a lovely idea. Thank you for that, Math. I really appreciate that. I'm looking forward to your next bit of artwork on this podcast and what it might be. Maybe it'll be a bit more gruesome than that. Another thing we have to mention is, unfortunately, Gerry Conway has passed away. The writer and co-creator of Ben Reilly, of The Jackal, of the original Clone Saga, of The Punisher, you name it. Vixen from DC Comics, Killer Croc, loads of other amazing comic book characters. It goes to show the amount of kind of impact he's had as a creator on, all these kind of classic stories. And again, the death of Gwen Stacy is his storyline as well. It's comic book history. He is comic book history. There wouldn't be this podcast. We wouldn't be talking about the 90s Clone Saga without that original. And even with his retcons as well, as we know that we'll get into at some point. But yeah, like Gerry Conway was an incredible talent, and he will be missed. And I don't know if you guys want to say anything about him in particular. Tony Holt?
R.I.P. Conway. I mean, the original creator of Miss Marvel, one of my favorite female superheroes.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, the original creator of Power Girl, like you mentioned, Killer Croc, one of the best Batman villains, hands down, in my opinion.
Jason Todd.
Gerry, we miss you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like there's many more we could list, but we'd be here all day. All the amazing characters he's created or had a hand in creating. Mental. But anything you'd like to say as well, Tony, about Gerry?
Like he's up there with Marv. Like when you think of like the second wave of comic writers and creators, the Claremonts, the Marv Wolfmans, the Conways. Like he's on that second wave Mount Rushmore of the characters that we all shorthand and think have been around forever, but they haven't. But they were definitely game changers. And like Conway, as you mentioned with the death of Gwen Stacy, ushered in a new era of comics. Like that, the death of Gwen Stacy is the moment when everything changed. There's books written about it. There's essays written about it. There are songs written about the death of Gwen Stacy, and that's a huge thing that he did. And and I just think we take some of these characters for granted, and they're silly comic book characters, but they're like important to us. They're important to the world. Like they inspire the next generation of people. And when we are, Tanya and I are working diligently on Comics Lit Volume 2, and there will be a Conway sighting in Comics Lit Volume 2 because Matthew B. Lloyd is writing about Power Girl. So
nice.
He definitely pops up there. So we know he'll be represented. And it's just sad. It's just like, the things that people get upset about, but to us, to we nerds, like it was a big deal.
Well said.
A lot of people will be currently enjoying the Punisher One Last Kill, I think it's called, the special on Disney Plus. And again, you don't have that. You don't have that character. You don't have the John Bernthals, the Thomas Janes, all these great actors, portraying that character and giving us various different versions of that character without that initial idea, that initial concept. He's going to be in a Spider-Man movie coming up as well, so there's going to be a lot of Punisher content and Spider-Man content, which again, even the Tarantula is in there, I think, the Black Tarantula, which is another Conway character, I believe. So yeah, a bit huge, on the Mount Rushmore of comic book creators, no doubt. But yes, so sad to hear that news, but we will carry on regardless, and we will talk about some of his wonderful creations. We've got one, actually, that turns up immediately in Web of Life. Tony Holt, why don't you tell us about the Scarlet Spider's new adventure?
Love to.
In Web
this
of
is
Life.
one of my favorite story arcs. I love a Ben Reilly story arc, and in this 4-issue series we get all Ben Reilly all the time, so I'm a huge fan of it. We start out seeing a few different classic Spider-Man characters as Ben Reilly throughout these 4 issues is starting to come into his own in New York City, trying to pull away from the shadow of Peter Parker's Spider-Man. We get to see him battle Tombstone atop an armored car. We get to see Scarlet Spider reconnect with one of Parker's first loves, Betty Brant, reporter at the Bugle, trying to get the scoop on the Scarlet Spider in a very sultry scene, I must say. We also get to see him touch base with J. Jonah Jameson, which, it's always fun when the Spider Boys and J. Jonah Jameson have a bit of a tete-a-tete. We also get to see Ben Reilly square off against the Grim Hunter, Vlad Kravinoff's son, the son of the Kraven the Hunter, which I think is a really nice callback to Kraven and Spider-Man's original battles. Vlad himself is in town seeking revenge. However, instead of Peter Parker, he ends up tracking Ben Parker, which then gives us a great opportunity to see. I'm sorry, I said Ben Parker, Ben Reilly, excuse me, which gives us a.
yeah, Ben Parker is long dead. He wouldn't have any trouble tracking him down.
Anyway, so we get to see Vlad, the Grim Hunter, starts tracking Ben instead of Peter, which again gives us an opportunity to watch Ben Reilly separate himself from his clone in how different he fights, and I would say how much more aggressive he is in his fighting, in his version of heroism, if you will. Again, kind of further pushing the narrative of Ben finding himself and coming into his own identity. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I think from publication order, from kind of issue release order, this is one of the first times where we really get to see Kaine in action, as he and Ben Reilly are in some of their first fights. Ben Reilly is trying to watch over Peter and Mary Jane in their apartment, making sure the Grim Hunter doesn't catch him by surprise, and out of nowhere, Kaine tackles him, and they start battling on the roof. Of course, Ben, not really sure who Kaine is, just knows that he's kind of crazy, wants to hurt him. Kaine, up here, dropping little hints that he knows who Ben Reilly is, that he knows more about Ben's past than even Ben does, and just kicking his ass in general, which I gotta say I kind of love about Kaine. I kind of love that. Kind of love that. Ultimately, by the fourth issue, we get to see Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider, the Grim Hunter, and Kaine in a brilliant three-way battle. I love a three-way superhero / supervillain battle. And this kind of marks a turning point for the whole Clone Saga, where at the end of the fight, Kaine catches up to and just snaps the Grim Hunter's neck, just maliciously, dirtily, dangerously, which leads us all to kind of a darker storyline as the Clone Saga continues. So lots of Ben Reilly, a little bit of violence, and kind of the turning point where it just gets darker from here.
Well said. Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself. So, Tony Farina, what did we think to Web of Life and the growing, storyline of the Scarlet Spider?
Well, I think there's some interesting breadcrumbs left here, and I think it is. I get why it's Tony Holt's. I mean, it's very to me of the three we're going to do today. Spoiler alert! To me, it's the best of the three that we're going to do this arc. That's just one Tone Clone's opinion. But what I like about it is once, because I already know what's happening, and so I love this is when you can see the writing is there. Like there's nothing that drives me crazier, and it's interesting in a story that is full of retcons and bullshittery, and like no bodies were thrown in those smokestacks. They're very careful about things. So we learn that through magic, Kraven had a thing that allowed him to detect Peter's blood, and so that's why he shows up to Ben, and then he sees him fight. Very Nightwing. Ben Reilly is very Nightwing in this episode, this story arc, which I love, including the lots of tight pant butt shots that are very reminiscent of Disco Nightwing. So I just find that really interesting, and I know they're trying to respond to what's happening in DC Comics with this. So like I've never really noticed about Ben being so Nightwing-esque that more than he is in this one, which I love, including like all the ladies love him. Like every woman that he meets is throwing themselves at him, and I'm like, that's very Disco Nightwing too. So, but what I love about it here, I mean, come on, Nightwing gets all the ladies.
You gotta love that
Everybody,
fan service.
Yeah,
you gotta
want to
love
be
that
him.
fan service.
Women, yeah. Oh my God!
We'll get there. We'll get some 90s fan service later, I think.
Yeah. So, but what I love is there's a moment later then when he recognizes, okay, you're not it. And then, so now you're with Grimm again, and you think he's going to show up and rock up on Peter, but he shows up and Kaine's there. And we know, and we've done this since we've done this in not in publication order, in chronological order, we also know he's one of the other sons of the Jackal, that he also is a Peter clone. So, of course, and it's right there. Like, that is so good in a thing that was so concerned about, like, the whole thing is the whole thing is concerned with like being as accurate and detail oriented as possible, and the whole thing is based on a retcon. So I found that really great writing and really fascinating work, and that there was a lot of things. There's a couple of excellent drawn images of Kaine where it's a shadow of him, and you can see he's got the black costume. He's got the Spider-Man black, like when you look at the shadow and the way the light is done, I'm like, oh man, that's the black suit. So like all these drips and drabs are there so that later, once you know, people can be like, oh, that's bullshit. Oh, no, they did their homework. They laid all the breadcrumbs here. And so I feel like that is just really well written. It's quippy. There's real stakes. I think it has an amazing juxtaposition between the fun of Ben Reilly and again the tight pants of Ben Reilly and all the ladies wanting to, but then also Grim Hunter dies at the end, and that's for real. So I just think overall it's a tight 4-issue series. I get why it would rub some people the wrong way, but I think this read, this look at it, I'm like just really impressed by how tight it is.
Tight and well written, or is it try hard? Were they going into so detail and so much concern and connection and information and that to make that retcon work? Is it really tight, methodical writing, or is it try hard?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. What say you, Spider Dan? I love that question.
it's interesting because we do, like you said, we do get a lot of breadcrumbs. We get like Kaine having visions of Mary Jane in trouble, which kind of leads him down this path of murdering people because he thinks maybe they're the person who hurts Mary Jane. Maybe they're the person. I'll just kill him anyway, just to be sure. You never know. So we do get some elements, and it was interesting to see Betty Brant come in and be. It's kind of nice that they're going, this is what I remember, this is who I remember, and I still feel strong feelings for her, even though they're not my feelings, they're not my memories, they're not my life. And I thought that was kind of interesting, and she's always been an interesting character for me, and kind of on the still on the periphery of Spider-Man stories, while still kind of being a key feature in them as well, which is interesting. So it was nice to see that she's kind of brought back into the fold a little bit, and I think they've titled these two story arcs quite well, because I think some people argue that maybe it should have been switched, because the first major death is in Web of Life, and then there's something that occurs in Web of Death, which kind of signifies life, let's say. We'll get into it. But I actually think it works the way it is, because Ben is attempting to build a personal life in this story arc. And I think it's very subtle and it's very deliberate that they're trying to expand. I don't know if it's try hard. I don't know if I'd say try hard. I can see where you're coming from, though. I think it's, again, they're keeping these characters separate for a reason, because they want to establish Ben as his own thing, as his own character, as his own life. Even though, yes, he is a clone. Yes, he has the same genetic material. Yes, he has the same memories. But he is still lived part of his life away from New York. He's not had the same full experience. Most of the experiences are the same, but it is still different. So I think him trying to build this life makes sense within the arc. And then the fact that a character loses their life is kind of makes it almost all the precious. That he wants to try and establish something, and he feels bad for trying to establish something. He was like, I was wrong to think I could love and be free and be with someone. And we see Gabrielle Greer again, which I didn't think we'd see her so soon, but she turns up and kind of blink and you'll miss it kind of cameo. And it was interesting that they almost went like, we'll introduce her as a new love interest, but no, we've got Betty Brant now. But no, Betty Brant is the focus. It's kind of like, okay. I see the shift and it makes a bit more sense to me in regards to linking it, but then do you not want to differentiate the characters more by having someone that's not linked to Spider-Man and that past? So yeah, I'm a bit on the fence. I will say what I'm not on the fence about is having 4 different artists on 4 different issues. That I really wanted a bit more consistency with the artwork. I don't think any of them are particularly bad, the issues, but I kind of felt like I just needed, maybe like Web of Death, we have 2 sets of artists on the 4 issues instead of 4 different artists. And I felt that lost it for me a little bit in the build-up. I like the Grim Hunter I like his kind of prep and stuff. I like his kind of, he's doing all the herbs and doing all the stuff. And again, this character was actually offered up by the creator of the character, because they were like, we need to kill somebody. And he goes, just do the Grim Hunter. I think they realised that there wasn't much they could do with that character other than what they had done already. So I think he was like, here you go, have him. Free reign to kill that character off. And the design is interesting, like the claws under the boots is interesting, like to help him climb and stuff, very like ninja. So there are elements I really like, but yeah, and I think I found I like the idea of the snap. You get the big kind of snap of the neck, and you don't know who it is. It could be Kaine, it could be the Grim Hunter, and then it feels a bit anticlimactic after that, because he kind of like, he doesn't just like, he's not just dead immediately. He kind of wobbles about for a bit and like says hello to his friend, his father's friend, and then just like goes. So I don't know, it felt a little bit anticlimactic, unlike the other story arc we'll be talking about, where it is just that one image and then dead. It's really dramatic the way they present the other death that we'll talk about. But yeah, I still enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. I like the added elements, the building, I like seeing Tombstone, again, another Gerry Conway creation. I love how he just whispers his lines, which I think is great. It's got the dotted lines around the speech bubbles indicating that it's whispering, which I think is a cool concept for the character. But yeah, I'm still not sure. I don't know where I land on the try hard comment, though. I'm not sure, but feel free to convince
More
me.
of a question than a position. As much as I love the story, again, it's always a little bit telling when they go into so much detail to kind of overwhelm you. Like, let us give you an orgy of evidence as to why this makes sense when, the whole thing doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. I guess they're trying to overwhelm the senses. Like, don't think about it. Don't think about
the inconsistencies.
Don't think about all these
Don't
details.
think about all the crazy things that are coming up. No, there's so much detail here that it couldn't possibly be a ridiculous amount of retcons that we weren't actually planning and don't have a great idea of where to go with. We're just going to feed you some fan service.
Yeah.
Which, hey, I'm here for. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Again, I'm enjoying it, but I definitely get the critique. Like, you've even got Jacob Raven in this coming in, talking about fingerprints. You've got Mary Jane coming back, going to the doctor. There's a lot going on in these 4 issues, and it seems like a fairly straightforward kind of storyline, but there is quite a lot of.
We
like
got are we introduced to the scientist friend of Ben?
Yes. Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, it's the first on-panel appearance of Seward Trainer or Seaward.
Seward, I couldn't think of his name.
Seward. Yeah,
Seward.
so he's a geneticist who's worked with the
Who may
Jackal.
or may not look like Slade Wilson.
Yeah, kind of. I mean,
honestly,
his outfit is very Shield-like. It looks like, because they used to have like orange Shield outfits. It wasn't the white and the blue. It was orange and blue for a while, and it looks like that. And I'm like, are you an agent of Shield? I don't think he ever is, but it definitely looks very kind of superheroic. And he seems to know about Kaine, and also, like, all of a sudden that they're both having the same dream. They're sharing the same dream with Kaine and Peter, because he's passed out on a roof because of the poison from the Vulture, and Seward seems to know about Kaine and who he is. But again, Ben doesn't really know that much about Kaine. It's very murky what we know or don't know about Kaine and his relation to the Scarlet Spider. And then all of a sudden, Ben calls up Seward Trainer and goes, "Oh, I've got degeneration disease. I've got a clone degeneration disease." And it's like, well, how do you know that? How do you know it's begun? Like, you had a dream and now it's begun. Like, I didn't quite understand that aspect.
Okay, here's how I'm gonna give that a pass. And here's so one of my least favorite things when you're reading something or watching something and they're afraid to have a line. Just have a fucking line to explain 100%. The thing. Okay. Yeah. And then when we get to Web of Death, there's a thing that isn't explained very well, but it's there it's for us to talk about. We'll get there. And there isn't a line, but I think that's deliberate that there isn't a line because that'll get explained way later. And you're like, what the fuck was that? Yeah. But in this, we're introducing a new guy whose name is a little on the nose. His last name is Trainer.
Yeah.
His name wasn't called Ben's emotional trainer. They decided to name him Seward Trainer.
Hello, I'm Johnny Mentor.
I'm Johnny Mentor. I'm right. That's exactly right. But that's very good. But that line says to me, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting, and so that is we haven't seen them talk. But because, again, remember, if you're reading this in publication order, Ben is still a bit of a mystery, right? We're still learning about Ben. And so this guy is part of Ben's. That's why Raven comes. That's why the Utah stuff comes and all that stuff. So you're like, we're in this. What this is setting up for the thing we've already covered, but the readers haven't seen. So you're like, oh, the Ben knows, because you can assume that one line gives you a fuck ton of backstory without having to do a whole issue of backstory.
Yeah, true.
That's my defense of that line.
I thinking about it. Yeah, I'm thinking about it now as well. I think it's a tease to learning who Kaine is as well, because we do learn Kaine is a clone of Peter Parker, a failed clone. with a degeneration disease, and this is occurring during the mix of all their dreams and visions going on. And later on in another story, we'll see that Spider-Man picks up one of Ben Reilly's trackers, his spider tracer. I think they call it a mini. He calls it a mini dot because it's got to be different. It's got to be different, so he's got a mini dot and not a spider tracer.
Yeah.
But they are attuned. Their spider senses are attuned to a certain frequency. So maybe there is something in there where their dreams can coalesce in some form. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, so that's my defense of that line is like you said, Tony, it does some compressed backstorytelling, and it's like and because if you are trying to try hard and give a lot of explanation and try to solve things, and again I bring this up all the time, one of the greatest scripts of all time is Back to the Future because it doesn't try.
Yeah,
it does. 88 miles an hour, flux capacitor, 1.21 gigawatts. Move along.
Absolutely.
Don't look. Nothing.
Absolutely.
And that is enough. And that is good, right? That's good. That's not that kind of movie. It's not Asimov's time travel. It's this, right? So, but because this is trying to fill in gaps, it's like, like when you watch the new Star Wars trilogy, right? When they get to the second one, he does what he does, Ryan does what he does, and then people get super pissy about what Ryan does. And so for the third one, they're like, well, hear me out. What if we just try our best to wipe that second movie away and like overcorrect because we were doing too much fan service? Like people complained the first movie was too much like the original Star Wars, so we'll make the second movie that's so different that everyone will be pissy about that. And now we got to try to save it for the third movie, and then Carrie Fisher dies, and so now we've got this other problem. And so I'm a Star Wars apologist. I love them all. It doesn't matter. I'm here for it. I love them all, but you can see them in real time, the studio notes. And so this is definitely we're a while into the Clone Saga in real time. We're almost a year into the Clone Saga, and the people are complaining. So they are in real time. Now, like you mentioned, the inconsistency of the art, the fact that, J.M. DeMatteis doesn't write the whole thing doesn't make any sense to me. There should be one writer for all issues, and you can have all the artists you want. I think that would help. But there is clearly some sort of architecture there where they're like, you got to say this line. You got to do this. We got to have a thing. So I again, I'm trying to forgive it for some of its clunkiness because it's trying.
Yeah,
it is. So it is. I don't know if it's trying too hard, Tony.
Yeah.
I think it's trying. Maybe it's not succeeding, but there doesn't always succeed. But I can appreciate the effort.
Yeah, I don't think it's
to the criticism. Yeah,
I don't think it's a bad story. I don't think it's necessarily my favorite one of the bunch we're covering today. I'm still kind of on the fence on which one I really, really would be my favorite if I had to pick. But I think it's solid. I think it does what it needs to do. It accomplishes what it sets out to do, I think, which is, again, introduce a new character, get rid of one of the characters, and, again, establish Ben even more as a presence in New York, and again, people are starting to like him, and he's starting to maybe the mask is okay, maybe this is a good thing for me, maybe this is his growth for me, as a person, as a hero, whatever, and people are recognizing me, and I'm taking out these kind of villains that Spider-Man would. I'll be honest, I'm surprised they have not run into each other at this point. Like, them dotting about, and, they do cross paths a little bit, but they never, directly bump into each other. I'm like, you're not even in, a separate part of, you're not in a separate part of New York. They're kind of in the same sort of area, because we know that from the stories and the interlinking stories. So I'm like, I kind of think you would bump in slightly, unless someone was actively avoiding the other one, which I mean, Ben is to a degree, but I don't think he's going out of his way to not bump into him. He's trying not to get involved in his life and ruin his life, which is, again, an element of Kaine's character. He's almost trying to protect Mary Jane and Peter, but also, doesn't really like Ben and doesn't like his involvement. And again, we'll get into the whole who's who and where's what much later. But yeah, I think it's an interesting arc, not perfect, but not, I wouldn't say bad at all. But that's just me. Tony, tell us a little bit about Web of Death.
So, and the companion piece to Web of Life, Web of Death, which people, these were flip books again, so people were reading these simultaneously. Some of these were flip books, some of these were in their own issues. Again, different writers, different things, but it's clearly all the same story. Kaine is throughout them all. And so this is Peter's half of the story. So while Ben is doing his Web of Life stuff, Peter is, we discovered, as we learned in the last story arc, Peter has been poisoned by the Vulture, and he and Daredevil tried to science it up, and that didn't solve it, and he thinks he's dying. And that's bad. Meanwhile, everybody's favorite redhead, Peter's, well, I can't even say it's Peter's favorite redhead. We hope it is, but yet another redhead. Mary Jane is dealing with her stuff, and we discover, so I'm just going to say this sort of out of order, we discover that Mary Jane, which we've known, we knew by reading the other issues, Mary Jane is pregnant.
Hinted very heavily.
Yeah, she even gets a cover of this one where she says, "Hey, Tiger, I've got great news." Wink. And it's not, we're moving out of Queens. That's not the news. The news is we're having a baby. So all of that is happening, which I think is an interesting juxtaposition because Peter thinks he's dying. But so while Kaine is there and all these other things and all this stuff is happening, Peter is saved by Doc Ock, who has a huge run through this. It's a fascinating mental look at Doc Ock, at Otto Octavius is really, and like he is Doc Ock in here, but he is clearly Otto Octavius, genius scientist. And this is very, again, I keep bringing the comparisons up because the point of this is they were trying to fight Batman here, and so of course this is really leaning into the Batman Joker thing with the Peter and Doc Ock and who is your greatest rival. It's me, no, it's me, no, I'm your number one bad guy, and Doc Ock really wants to be his number one bad guy, and so. Otto wants to save Peter, and he has the help of his. If this was a movie version, I can only imagine who might have played Stunner, this massive professional wrestler. Like I almost sort of want to see Math. This is my request to Math.
There we go.
I almost want to see, her in the wrestling ring, like holding like Ben in one arm and Peter in the other arm, like wrestling, because she is huge, like Big Barda huge. Like she walks into a bar, she's a foot taller than everybody. She's named Stunner. She's wearing very, 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 very tight pants that come really close. In the way that it's drawn is very tight in certain regions, but then for one reason or another, she's just got one whole leg covered, except for that little
this character's got a real feminist message, but then they draw her like that.
Right, I know, it's crazy, but she is a fascinating character, and we'll talk a little bit more about her. But anyway, so we go through this whole thing. Otto thinks he saves Peter, but it turns out just like in the last one, a little bit of a retread from the one with Daredevil where Peter thinks he's saved, but he's not. JK, psych, it's just a temporary thing and he's sick again. He fakes it with Mary Jane so that he can be happy about the baby, pretends he's well. Ultimately, Otto does find a way to save him by giving him a great speech about why I need you. And then as soon as he saves Peter, he immediately gets arrested and villains it up. And then it ends with another shocking death. I mean, they kill Doc Ock here, which is a big deal. Like killing off Grim Hunter.
Yeah, sure.
He's been here for a minute.
Totally throwaway character.
Right?
Yeah.
But to kill, I mean, what's it? Right, totally right. Even the lion on his shoulder isn't even a real lion. It's like a cardboard cutout. He's like, I'm going to have a lion like my dad's. I'm going to draw this.
Craven didn't wear a real lion. I think he painted on the eyes, but he had the mane. He probably had the mane, but that's it.
His is definitely just like a cardboard, it's really lame. But yeah, I mean, they go full bore. I mean, to kill Doc Ock, that's a big deal.
Yeah. And this is a character that appeared in Amazing Spider-Man 3.
Right.
Like this is like early Spider-Man.
Yeah, Kirby Kirby creation, right? Or is it Stan?
I think it's more. I think it's Ditko. I think it's Ditko.
Oh, it was a Ditko creation. Oh, okay.
I think maybe he might have he might have designed the character perhaps, but the first appearance was drawn by Ditko, definitely.
Okay, drawn by Ditko. So here you've got that's a big deal. and he dies at the end. And like you said, less surprise. I mean, boom, but then Peter still gets to go. Sort of, Peter doesn't know right away that happens because he's out having happy life, building a crib with Mary Jane. And so it's this amazing juxtaposition, and then Stunner, who may or may not be real, and may or may not blink out of existence once in one panel. And I read it the first time, and I was like, wait, what happened? And when I read it again this time, I was like, I totally forgot that happened. She literally just disappears. And so that is, again, an interesting conversation that they're setting up for later. Because it's like, wait, if she's not there, then how could she destroy that bar? What is happening? Anyway, so that is it. Web of life that ends in death.
Yes, web of death, absolutely.
Web of death that ends in life.
Web of death ends in life.
Okay, sorry.
Vice versa.
As you can
all
tell,
the same.
it's a bit of a mess.
Web of midlife. Midlife crises.
Web of midlife crisis. 100%.
Web of midlife infinite crises.
Yes. And there's definitely, while there are only 2 artists in this one, as you said, I think some of the art is much better than others.
Yes. Well, we have Sal Buscema is on the art for Spectacular again.
Yeah.
But he does the breakdowns, but Bill Sinkovich does the finishes. So that's why it looks quite different from what we've had from Sal earlier. But Tony Holt, what did you think to Web of Death?
Probably my favorite part is that Doc Ock saves Spider-Man with a speech. I think that was just a brilliant way to describe what happened. Web of Death. I mean, for me, this one, the most interesting parts of this one were kind of getting deeper into where Mary Jane fits into this, that Mary Jane's pregnancy, Mary Jane kind of coming back from battling back that family trauma, Peter trying to manage his own insecurities about who he is, his life, his ability to continue to protect and live and stay with Mary Jane, on top of now becoming a father and what that means for his future as Spider-Man, as well as love that they brought Doc Ock into the mix, right? Love that they brought this longtime villain in to, again, be used as a plot point to really drive the story into that darker narrative, to really build real consequences by killing Doc Ock. I also love Stunner. I get real like Titania vibes, like She-Hulk's character, which I love. Titania. I think she's a great villain corollary. I always love seeing a supervillain's partner, like a supervillain's I'll always love to see like the supervillain's lady or like the supervillain's other, and see what kind of personality they have, what kind of person a supervillain falls in love with, or what kind of person falls in love with a supervillain, right? I always love to see that person and who they become and how they effectively show that love and how they get wrapped up in that world. So seeing Stunner brought in to kind of attack Parker, go after Parker, follow Doc Ock, and then ultimately, kind of mourn his death and the future that we'll see for Stunner. She's blinked out of existence. Those were kind of the most interesting story beats for me. In general, I think this is, from my perspective, this was the part that was needed to keep the Clone Saga connected. You needed to see, we got the Ben Reilly story, you need to see the Peter Parker story, so you know what's happening at the same time. While Ben's battling Kaine, Peter Parker's battling for his life, so that the both can come together in the next story arc.
Definitely. Tony Farina, you gave us a wonderful synopsis, but what are your thoughts on this particular story arc?
Thank you. That's always the hardest part. I always feel like I even asked you in advance to have me be prepared, and then I still was
what
not.
Am I doing?
Like I was
what
not
am I
prepared
doing?
for Prattle. Because I prattle. Here's the thing. Here's what I like about this. I do think, again, I'm going to stand by what, and again, that's why reasonable people can just disagree.
Yeah.
And I like this. I like this for Peter. I like this for Mary Jane. And I like this for what we know will come for Ben down the line. When you look at the try hard, the great writing, or we backed into it because didn't we say, hey, wait, in issue 317, didn't we say, oh, wait, let's go use that? It could be that they accidented their way into it. But these moments are when you see Ben in the Web of Life loving the Scarlet Spider persona a little bit and like starting to come into his own there and like having fun and all the ladies love him and everything. That's great. And then in the meantime, we also see Peter having a reason to maybe need to walk away from being Spider-Man and like getting this new lease on life. And he has this whole happy moment where he's going to be your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and dark Spider-Man's no more. And like he comes through this other side. And that is a real thing, you know, like unlike Batman, who like forces all of his children into indentured servitude and makes them beat up bad guys, most superheroes, maybe once they have kids, they don't want to do that. And so you have this idea of like, because even when you think about like Gwen's dad, you know, it's a tough life for him. He's always really super worried about Gwen. You know, he's a police captain and all these things. And it's like, also like, I'm putting my kid in danger. Like Jim Gordon doesn't want Barbara Gordon. He loves that she's a librarian. He doesn't want her to be Batgirl. You know, like that's not something he was rooting for her to be Batgirl. So there's this idea of like protecting your kids. So we see, and since Peter is a reasonable guy, he's still just a kid from Queens, having the baby coming. I do like this as a table setter for what we're about to see. Now, do people like? We'll get there. How do people feel about what happens? I think universally panned. I mean, Tony Holt notwithstanding, who Ben Reilly is his favorite Spider-Man. I think that, you know, in the universe has spoken kind of thing, they don't love it. I think it was an interesting decision that they make, and we'll talk about it later, but it all starts here. So this is an important piece. This is an important section. And I really like what you said, Tony. Like, I think it is fascinating to think about who falls in love with Doc Ock. Besides Aunt May.
I like that.
True. I was gonna mention this because he calls to check in on her.
Yeah.
He calls. So again, he used to be Aunt May's lodger initially, early on in the Stan Lee, John Romita run, and they became friends that way. And she hates Spider-Man, so they bonded that way.
Yeah.
And then she inherited a nuclear reactor from a relative, and then he was like, "I've got to marry that woman. I need a nuclear reactor. I need a nuclear reactor." Didn't quite turn out for Doc. He ended up fighting a ghost of Hammerhead, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
But I did love that little moment, what I like the juxtaposition of because he goes, "What has happened to you, Spider-Man? What has become of you?" And he says, "You're dark. You're this horrible like Avenger. Where is this vibrant, you know, lively character used to, you know, match wits with me and you know, verbal barbs and, you know, and quips, like who is this dying, weak, disheveled, dark, depressed character?" And I think within that the character of Doc Ock is giving voice to the criticisms of the fandom as well. I think they're going, because he's a fan of Spider-Man. Like, that's where we are in this story. He's going, you know, I'm nothing without this character. This character means a lot to me. This person means a lot to me. And they're on their last legs. And who am I? And what we see is that Spider-Man has become darker and darker and more depressed and angry and wants to cut himself off from the sensitive parts of himself. But with Stunner's introduction, we see that Doc Ock is getting more and more sensitive, more and more touching, and more, you know. And when she does blink out and disappears, and God knows where she goes, he's like, "No, come back! I need you! I love you!" You know, like he's desperate for that connection. You know, considering he has all these limbs, he doesn't. He really just needs a big hug, doesn't he? Doc Ock just needs a big hug, like deep down. You know, his mum was abusive, his dad was abusive. You know, and no, his dad was abusive, his mum was like overbearing. But you know, there is that element to it, and I like that. I like that. Again, does it quite work as, you know, something like Batman, where it's quite, you know, I don't know, it's a bit more forthright, I feel, or it's a bit more clear, the distinction between him and his villains. Again, early on, Stan didn't really think about those kind of, what's a spider's greatest nemesis? An octopus. It's or a green
why not?
goblin.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
what he was thinking at the time. He was like, what can I come up with this week? True believers, and it was just like every week another weird creation character. They didn't really think too much in depth about what they were doing, but they probably didn't do the same for the Batman villains. But over time, I think those connections to Batman's villains are a reflection of him. I don't think necessarily Spider-Man's villains are a reflection of him. What is Electro to Spider-Man? Not really. There's not much of a connection there, is there? Or the Scorpion, one of your favourites, Tony. Is there much of a connection there? Maybe not, but at least I like the attempt to link them together. I like the revealing of the identity. They do call back to a storyline. I think it's Spider-Man issue 13, I want to say, where Doc Ock defeats Spider-Man soundly and unmasks him because I think he had a head cold or something, so he wasn't on his game. And they don't believe he's Spider-Man. They're like, oh no, Aunt May's in danger, or Betty Brant's in danger. So he goes, oh, you're the boyfriend of Betty Brant. You're a teenager, you're a kid, it's not you. Bring me the real Spider-Man. And he questions that. He goes, why didn't I believe? And I think it's almost like he was doing the mental gymnastics to know that a child couldn't have defeated me. A child could never, my great ego, the ego of Dr. Octopus, the genius of Dr. Octopus could never be defeated by a child. But I think that's a real cool reference. And we do get a similar one later on in the following storyline. But yeah, I like this. I think, again, the art is consistent. The artists are better, I'm going to say, than the previous arc, than Web of Life. I think they are some of the biggest and best comic book artists that ever did any work. And I think that does help with the storyline. I think it does bring it together, and having those more personal moments with Mary Jane and those kind of softer, more sensitive moments. I think this is definitely more the character piece than Web of Life. Web of Life is here's a bombastic action story with the introduction of various elements and characters. But this is like, who is Peter Parker? What does he want to live for? Does he want to live? Is Aunt May going to live to see the baby? Do we go to heaven for a little bit or limbo?
We do, actually. I would love to hear what you guys thought about the afterlife.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Book.
Tony Hall, what did you think to the limbo afterlife segment when Spider-Man has seemingly died and Doc Ock's trying to resuscitate him, and we see him floating around, seeing the ghosts of various people, like Nick Katzenberg that I mentioned in the last podcast. He's there, still smoking in the afterlife, even though he died from smoking directly. And we see Aunt May. But yes, Tony Hall, what did you think to this element?
I'm not really sure what else to say. Meh.
Yeah.
Again, my favorite part, what I think of this whole thing is that it was a necessary story to tell. I think you described it in a really great way. We got the battle up front, and the bombastic action scenes in Web of Life. Web of Death is more of the character driven, the heart driven, while still setting up like real consequences for the Clone Saga to come, the Clone Saga stories to come. My favorite parts are what we saw between kind of Doc Ock and Stunner, and I especially, as you mentioned it, I'm thinking back to how much Otto Octavius was just dissing Peter Parker and how much I loved it. Like just like ferociously, mercilessly dissing Peter Parker. Like it's bad when your greatest enemy is talking trash about how you can't talk trash no more, and that's your whole thing. So the whole being in the void, meh.
So yeah. It reminded me a lot. Again, this whole idea was a spin-off of the death of Superman. The editors said we need something like the death of Superman, and there is a scene where Pa Kent has a heart attack and goes up or meets Clark, or Clark's already on his way to heaven and he meets him and talks to him and they have a moment. And I was like, okay, it's just this. It is this. That's all that is. So it feels like they're riffing, but also I think they're setting up a line for a certain issue as well. I think they're like, I want a callback to a certain line. I won't say what it is, but you'll know when we get there. When we get to issue 400, You know what line it's going to be because they reference it here. And again, maybe a bit try hard, perhaps, because I know that line is going to be said at a certain point, at a critical juncture in issue 400, and because I know that, I'm like, this is where it begins. This is where
those are the try hard pieces I'm talking about. It's like, why do we need to copy this void scene from Superman? Why can't we just do our own thing, right? No, that's
exactly,
that's part of the try hard that I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. I see it now. I can see it. That example is now I can see it with that. But yeah, I agree. I don't hate it. I don't, you see it in everything. You see this idea, this trope in everything. So I'm kind of so used to it. I'm kind of numb to it a little bit. So I don't dislike it. It's there, but I kind of also, it doesn't feel entirely out of place, but also I don't think we necessarily need it either.
And I do think it's one of those situations where, you have this is a world where there's, gods walk among us, and there's Hulks, and there's all these other things. So, of course, there's an afterlife, and of course, there's guys still smoking, and of course, Uncle Ben is there, and of course, Peter's parents are there, and they know everything that's happening. Like, their whole life is just watch TV of the people that they used to know.
I love that concept.
Like that's what it's right. I mean, that's what it seems like they're doing. They're like, what are you guys doing in the afterlife? We're just watching you. It's not creepy at all.
Got nothing to do. No TV.
Right. Watching our son and our nephew knock up.
There's no Netflix in heaven.
Weird.
There's no Netflix in heaven. So.
Yeah, there's nothing else to do.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do?
Yeah, it's weird. And I know it was a way to get, because there's a scene earlier where you hear Aunt May hearing Peter talk while she's in her coma, and this was a way for them to communicate. So to me, if you're going to do it, that's the only person he needs to talk to. I don't need to see everybody else. I thought like that was the bridge too far. You set it up earlier. There's this whole idea people have discussed, and there's books written about it and scientific research on it.
Yeah.
Not that these people were thinking about that, but we reasonable humans in the real world know.
No.
People do argue that when you're in a coma, you talk to somebody in a coma because they can hear you. So you're like, so we get that moment with Aunt May, who's literally done nothing for a year in the continuity. Let's get her involved. She's kind of important. So I was
They're unfridging. They're unfridging.
They're unfridging. And I appreciated that with her. But yeah, so I didn't need the rest of it. It was just like, and I didn't even think about that Clark and Pa Kent in heaven scene, whatever. But this has been done, like Buffy, right? When they bring Buffy back, and Buffy was way after that. She sings the song,
if you've watched anything in your life, if you've read anything in your life, they have done this. They have done
even
this
Magnum
trope.
PI.
Oh wow!
Even in Magnum, no, it's true. They killed off Magnum in the original series. They killed him off, and that was how it was supposed to end. But then that final episode was so well rated, but they killed him. So at the very end,
I never knew this.
No,
it's
true. So at the very end, Tom Selleck's character. So in the show, Tom Selleck has a daughter who died, and so at the very end, he gets to he's walking over to meet his daughter. And then at the beginning of the next season, after they unkilled him, it starts there where Magnum is dead and he's whistling. He's got his tiger's hat on. He gets to be with his daughter, and then they bring him back. Even in Magnum PI, they did it. So
I was really watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, where they did a clip show that was all Commander Riker fighting for his life from this alien infection, and it's just him in his head doing clips of him being a hero as he's fighting for right. This is such a trope that always shows up.
You've got to fight, Riker. You've got to fight. You've got to fight this infection.
Riker, if you die, no one will ever man-spread like you will. Come on.
No one will ever sit down like you will, Riker.
Will Riker.
Nobody has that.
Just the chair.
Nobody else does those maneuvers like you. You've got to live. You've got to teach people how to do it.
Nobody can. There's even a joke about it in Strange New Worlds, where the guy playing Kirk tries to do the step over the chair and he knocks his balls on the back of the chair. Fantastic. I'm like, and I actually think he directed that episode.
Probably. That would not surprise me.
Yeah. Anyway, I love that though, Tony Hall. You're right. I love, and of course it's Riker. Riker's always fighting for his life.
Yeah.
Come on, Will.
Another couple of things I like to mention. Again, Kaine is a looming presence in this and makes his presence known. But there are a couple of other little bits that I quite enjoyed. Like, even though Mary Jane is happy and they reconcile, I love that moment where Mary Jane and Peter get back together and they're kind of not sure, they're feeling each other out, and then they eventually kind of embrace and, you know, they're back together, they forgive each other, we're moving on. Great. Learn about the baby. Peter's in shock. He's recovered from the poison. I'm cured, way. Not quite. Not quite. He's not recovered from the poison, but we don't know that just yet. But I love the moment where Mary Jane worries and is concerned. You know, I love that, again, she's so happy, she's so glad, and you know, she's so full of life. But she then thinks about the radioactive blood of Peter Parker and what effect that could have on the baby, and how that could affect her and her developing pregnancy and the problems it could possibly cause. I thought that was there was a real touchstone there of something really real within this kind of, you know, wacky comic book story. There was a moment of a woman really deeply concerned and not telling her husband that, you know, her deepest worries and fears about being pregnant, because being pregnant is terrifying, of course. But yeah, there was a really cool moment there, and like they even go out to dinner. They stay in and have like pizza, and then they go out to dinner the following night, only to be interrupted by Jacob Raven, who's again cropping up a lot. He keeps coming in. Something's coming. Something that we already know is gonna happen, but it's building up. But yeah, let's before we finish, obviously Kaine kills Doc Ock, snaps his neck. But yeah, Tony really wanted to talk about Stunner. So Tony Farina, talk about Stunner. I know you're desperate to.
The thing I love about Stunner is, okay, so she is obviously a big Barda type character. She's this massive. She's cool. She's a cool, like you said. It is the typical. I love that you bring up She-Hulk. Tony Holt Jr., because like Byrne's She-Hulk run is my favorite She-Hulk run of all time. It is the definitive She-Hulk run. And what John Byrne does is he makes fun of it. He even is making fun of, like, when they had She-Hulk be like that pinup model, like in that stupid Marvel swimsuit issue. Like, Byrne is making fun of
they
that.
recreated the Debbie Moore picture, didn't they,
right.
when she was pregnant?
Yeah.
They do it with a beach ball. Yeah.
Right. So he's just like, that is so funny, because like but this isn't that. Like Byrne is giving She-Hulk, giving Jennifer her due as this feminist icon, and this Stunner could be all of that. Like, it starts off so strong. She goes in, she's gonna like, all right, all you big men in a bar, here I am. You all want to do me? Look at me. Who wants a piece? And they don't. So she just kicks their ass, destroys the bar. It's amazing. But then, like, her outfit is so bad, and it's like, it's just one of those things where Jack and I talked about this in the Red 5, the dinosaur comics. I can't even think of what they're called right now. Anyway, like, all the men in that are like dressed in like armor, and they've got, you know, Mad Max shit, and all the women have like a ripped crop top. And you're like, wait, you're also in battle. So what does that mean? Your abs are made of steel and you don't need armor? I don't understand. And it's that very similar thing here. Like, she could be all the things, like, and like feel like she's owning her being this feminist icon, but then she's not. Like, because then Doc Ock is like, go mail some letters for me. Literally,
pretty much.
Like,
She goes, go do my errands. Go
pick up my dry cleaning.
Go give my ex some flowers while she's in a coma.
Right.
You know.
And so it's such a weird thing. So it's like such a. Like, they get so close so many times. They get so close here.
And again, there's we've still got like the broken back. Unfortunately, it's the 90s, so we've still got that kind of bad girls kind of movement. You know, your Vampirellas and all your that sort of stuff. So she's like, there's a bit of broken back acting and stuff like that. And
that's a great point.
So it's there. And again, the costume is what it is. I kind of accept it. It's a Bagley kind of design costume.
But Bagley is such a good artist. That almost makes it worse, because Bagley's so good that you're like, whoa, hey,
come on with something else.
I mean, honestly, like, I just am thankful that, and I'm not a big fan of the comics code, but if there were no comics code, let's own it. Bagley would have camel-toed her.
Oh, absolutely.
But does that make it worse? Does it? Does it make it worse? I
Does it
mean,
make it worse?
of all the comics eras, man, when it comes to fan
Is-
service,
We've had try hard writing. Are we now getting try hard
ooh,
art?
that's good.
Is that what we're getting?
That's good. I like that. I
There we
like
go.
that.
Maybe.
There we go.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
the artists are trying too hard to give us
She
sort of,
all I'm saying is she could have had pants on.
sure.
She
No,
all the
appreciate that.
top could have been whatever, but it's like there was just something about the way from that very ridiculously her waist is like she's this big brawler. She's called Stunner, and she looks like a professional wrestler, and she's got all these things, right? And it's like
I love her
Cynthia
confidence.
Rothrock would love to play her in a movie. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely,
But,
yeah. Yeah, I love her confidence. I love, these men are clearly saying really misogynistic things in this bar as she goes in, and then literally like grabs the bar and it kind of shatters. Like that's how strong she is. Just like explodes just from her grabbing it gently. Just absolutely splinters. And like I like that she's talking about how sheltered she'd been and how like. How she had a very strict kind of upbringing and stuff, and how free she feels, how liberated she feels, how she can, and she's not uncomfortable that she, will give a man space. She's like, I can give my man space. I'm not jealous, or I'm not like other women. She's the ultimate pick me girl now. As you would say now, pick me, Doc Ock, pick me. But I like those elements to her. Like there's something that maybe we didn't have with a character like Nocturne. There's some life and some depth to this character. Again, we don't know absolutely everything about her, and we will learn more about her, and she is still kind of even more interesting the more we learn about her. But I'm already on board with Stunner. Where's my miniseries? Where's my Stunner miniseries? Let's get on that. Where's that? What's happening?
Hell yeah.
give us that.
Let's say right now. Let's get a Stunner reboot right now. She gets her own. Let's have a Stunner reboot. Let's like get Gail Simone to write it. I'm here.
Oh yeah.
I'm all in.
Hell yeah. New costume though. New costume.
Well, but I don't know what Gail did with Red
Redesign.
Sonja. She kept her in the costume, but then also commented on the costume constantly, which is great. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I guess that's a Power Girl thing as well.
Right?
Always commenting on the costume and the ridiculousness of it. Well, as Doc Ock has died, we have our mini-series. Again, a separate mini-series outside of the regular Spider-Man books called Funeral for an Octopus. I wonder what's going to happen in this. We have a funeral almost immediately for Dr. Octopus, who nobody knows who's killed him. It's a mystery. It was Kaine. Kaine tried to warn Stunner away as well. He didn't want her involved. But he went in, Doc Ock was accepted, open arms. He called the police and said, good Spider-Man, and we're going to have an excellent battle once we are back together and he's at full strength. I can't wait to match our wits together again. He's then, captured by Kaine, and he snaps his neck quite easily, dead. So the funeral occurs. We see a few characters, a few familiar faces. We have Betty Brant is there, J. Jonah Jameson is there, Peter is there, Scarlet Spider is watching from afar. Elias Hargrove is there, who is the cousin of Doc Ock. Now, he showed up in Lethal Foes of Spider-Man, which is one of the earliest Spider-Man comics I ever owned, which is from the villain's perspective. And he basically got Doc Ock his job at the Atomic Research Center where his accident occurred because Elias Hargrove was embezzling money, and Doc Ock helped him cover it up. So he's then indebted to Doc Ock for the rest of his life. Then the accident occurs and Doc becomes a huge two-villain problem. So that's why he's kind of there. He's the last living relative of Dr. Octopus. And he fidges into this story quite well. We even have the obituary writer of the Daily Bugle there. He looks like Ken Ellis. I thought it was Ken Ellis. But actually what is his name? It is Dilbert Trilby, who he has a conversation at some point with Ben Urich because all of the obituaries he's written for all these superheroes end up being undone anyway. And he starts to think it's like a conspiracy. And Ben Urich is like, no, they're all just cover-ups. They're all just mistakes or hoaxes. And he's like, I don't know, there's something going on here. So, which I think is quite funny, like reading up on him. But yeah, so we learn Doc Ock has died and he's left a video will to Elias Hargrove. and the government has confiscated all of Doc's notes and technology, including his mechanical arms. And Elias Hargroves hires the remaining Sinister Six, so we don't even get a full Sinister Six. We get like a Sinister Four or Five, I think, and they are set off to go and stop that. Scarlet Spider comes in, he's defeated, then Spider-Man comes in, tries to stop them, ends up wearing the mechanical arms himself, because what they've done is they've created a helmet that replicates Doc Ock's brainwaves, so someone else can use those arms. And Kaine appears, tries to kill Electro, and we learn that Doc Ock's will is actually an illusion. It's not real. It was not a real will. It was created by Mysterio, so he could steal knowledge of the New York underworld, so he could use that to his advantage to blackmail them or take control of the underworld. And yeah, so he turns out to be a robot, because Kaine goes to kill him and goes, "Oh, you're a robot. Shit, I want to kill you. Why aren't you here?" And he almost kills Electro, but is scared off by Spidey. And then Spidey has to tear off these metal arms because they go haywire after the Hobgoblin damages the helmet. And then Scarlet defeats Mysterio. He sets off the bomb inside the container of the information, and then he says, "Elias Hargrove, don't be doing any more naughty things in the future, because I'll be watching you." And Spidey is kind of indebted to Ock, so he swears vengeance on the killer of Dr. Octopus, who he has not yet met and does not know who that is. It's only 3 issues, so short and sweet. What did we think? Tony Farina.
Well, it was definitely a series
Tell us how you really feel.
that was made.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, I get what it was. It was like, if we call it The Funeral for an Octopus, again, we're commenting on these other things. They think they're going to sell a bunch of books. We've killed off one of Spider-Man's original villains. It's going to be this huge big thing. They bring Betty in, who even does the flashback to Bennett.
Yeah, so her brother was involved with Dr. Octopus, and I think it was
early days.
Yeah, I think it was during the same storyline where Peter was unmasked as
so
Spider-Man.
way early.
Really early, like 13, issue 13 or 12 of The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, so he's killed, Bennett's killed.
Yes.
And I've read those, I got one of those like that, and I've read some of those old ones, and they're, they're wordy. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
Oof.
Very structured.
Stand.
Lot of tiny panels.
I know. It's like, I don't know how Kirby and Ditko got along with him, because it's just like, he's just putting, like, can we really? Anyway, but you see the flashback, which I appreciated, right? A callback. Yes. So they're even reminding you, like, hey, audience, this is a big deal. This is an old character. This is Betty. You don't know who she is. She's also a big deal. This was like The Funeral of an Octopus, the Speculators comic book market edition. I wouldn't be surprised if there were like 15 foil covers and whatever. It really felt like that. But I mean, you even like have the Sinister 4.5, and you're like, make sure we get Sandman for a second. Look, Electro in his full 1970s, with his like starfish head, and like, I get it. I mean, it's not like I dislike any of these villains. It's not like I dislike this idea of Peter and Ben teaming up together to defeat the Sinister 4.5.
But they don't meet. They don't meet still.
It was such a swing and a miss. It really did feel, to me, it felt very speculators market. It was it was a nice, like, my favorite parts though, of course, are the Ben Reilly action, because I do love to see Ben in action. And I do think, Peter trying to have some of that, like at the very, very end, you're setting something up. But we also know it's Marvel Comics. And so even if you didn't read this, and the next one, Peter will say, "I vow to find the killer of Doc Ock," as seen in, so you don't even, so it was like, and there's a couple of moments where like this happens before this issue. So they're really squeezing stuff in. So it was definitely a comic series that exists.
Tony Holt, how do you feel
like
as strongly
more than me, Tony?
Do you feel as strongly as Tony does?
I'm gonna have to say no to that one. Wow. Although after hearing that critique, I'm starting to second guess my thoughts on this series, because you make some really really strong points about the missed opportunities, right? I so just to kind of set some context here, I didn't have a ton of the individual issues. I didn't even follow the Clone Saga when it first came out in the 90s, but I did have a copy of Funeral for an Octopus 1 as a single issue, and the cover of Spider-Man and the Scarlet Spider being entangled by Doc Ock's octopus arms coming out of his grave is just epic. When I think of the Clone Saga, this is the cover I think of every single time. Even just the Scarlet Spider and Spider-Man on the cover, standing back to back, that is just like epic, right? That is just the whole. Whenever I think about the Clone Saga, that is like the flavor I come to this with. That is just the epic scene for me. One of the best comic covers I think I've ever seen. Right, I love it. That being said,
it is cool.
Not the best story. Missed opportunity to bring Peter Parker and Ben Reilly together as Spider-Man and Scarlet Spider doing battle with the Sinister Four and a Half. missed opportunity to have a new Sinister Six. Bring a person and a half in to be six villains battling. Missed opportunity to do a little bit more with Mysterio. I love when Mysterio shows up and just throws a monkey wrench in everything, and oh wait, it's a robot. Missed opportunity to kill Mysterio. I mean, come on.
Yeah, kill him, and then later reveal he was a robot.
Right?
I feel like
That
do
would
that.
have been amazing. Yes.
And then you go, ha, I tricked you. I'm not really dead. You know, he's full of that. I almost expect it. I expect that he would be killed and go, nope, not dead yet. You know, and if there's the many deaths of Mysterio we could go into, but yeah, like there are moments, and you think of all the moments to bring the two characters back together, it would be the death of their arch villain, one of their earliest villains. In fact, you know, why would that you could have that moment? You know, but yeah, it seems strange to me. So I think again they're saving it. I think our next podcast we will see that, if I remember rightly, we will see that along with some other returning characters as well. But yeah, I also have a bit of a nostalgic link to this miniseries as well. I didn't read it at the time, but I had an action figure, which was Spider-Man with the mechanical arms, with the encephalo helmet on, and he had flexible Doc Ock arms you could move. You know, you could take all that stuff off and you still had a regular Spider-Man figure. But I thought that was kind of pretty cool. So I have there's some personal link there for me, not the book, but the action figure that represents the moment, which is kind of a cool moment where he's fighting the Sinister Six or four and a half off with the mechanical arms and stuff. Like that is a cool moment. That is, and also that character, that version of the character, also appeared in the 90s animated series when they did their Spider-Verse crossover. Ben Reilly is there as a Scarlet Spider, but next to him is, you know, a Doc Ock armed, you know, Spider-Man. And again, like a lot of the Spider-Man, you know, when Doc Ock, spoilers, becomes the superior Spider-Man, he has his own arms, doesn't he? And Spider-Man seems to have a lot of arms in the video games and various other things, so it seems to be an evolution of that to some degree. Like, it's almost expected Spider-Man will have some arms poking out at some point, you know, in the Tom Holland movies, Avengers, you name it. It's kind of almost expected that he's going to have some extra appendages. And I think that kind of starts here, really, if anywhere. So I think it's fine. I don't think it's, you know, groundbreaking. I don't think it's as interesting as maybe the other stories, but I think it does what it needs to do. It doesn't stay too long. It doesn't outstay its welcome. It flies by. There's a bit of intrigue. There's some characters. There's some stuff that occurs, but it's not gonna. And again, it is. I'm glad we had this. I'm glad that we didn't just carry on after Ock. I'm glad we had a moment for him and his character, and what, you know, the importance of losing a character of this magnitude within the Spider-Man universe. I think is important to have something. And again, maybe I think an obituary for an Octopus would have been a better title, personally. Get the alliteration going. That. You know, if we're going to do that, I think that would have been much better, but that's just me. But yeah, I'm glad we had something just to kind of, again, a eulogy for Dr. Octopus, whatever you want to call it. But I'm glad we had a little something to say. This was a big thing that happened. If you weren't aware, this did occur in one of the issues, by the way. And I think it's almost telling the readers and advertising to the readers that big things are happening, big things are shifting. It's not just, freak of the week. Things devastating, big changes are happening. Again, we have Spider-Man's having a baby. That's a big deal, and I think them titling it as such is them trying to get readers on board and to go, like, you should be caring about these books. But yeah, I think there's something about the consistent art in this. I think it's the same inker, but I think there's a couple of different artists. And I think there's, in some ways, I prefer that, to have a consistent inker or artist. It just helps a little bit. I don't need it, but it does kind of grease the wheels a little bit for me, where the storytelling is concerned, myself. But I don't know how you guys felt about the artwork in this one in comparison to the other stuff. Tony Farina?
In
Tony Holt?
comparison,
Anybody?
One of the things that I like about the series overall is how often they switch up the artists. Like that's something that I do love. Because I'm always drawn to the weird, strange comic book arts, and especially the weird colors and inkers that how they change the character's look will also change the story. So I love when issue after issue they switch up the artist. So having the consistent artist, having this consistent color themes is not huge for me. But like I said, I literally bought this comic book on the strength of the cover. I was drawn into the Clone Saga on the strength of this first cover of Funeral for an Octopus. So, I'm never going to throw shade at any of the artists on the Clone Wars. It's just it's and the stranger the ones, the better, right? Like if we thinking back to the Lost Years, where you've got the crazy haired Kaine. Oh man, yeah.
Big swings. Yeah, I like that as well. I appreciate artists taking and doing something unique and interesting with this. But yeah. There's not much else really to say about Funeral for an Octopus. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say, Tony, specifically.
No, I mean, I do agree that cover of issue 1 is like poster
slaps.
It is amazing, absolutely. And it is great work. And
creepy, weird,
horror. And it would definitely make you want to pick it up. I mean, like you remember there's things like that like covers used to do something. That comic that were really important. They were almost like a Dickinson, like Emily Dickinson doesn't title her poems, right? You know what I mean, necessarily. So it's like we title them, lines from the poem sort of become the thing, right? But then there are people who do like Philip Larkin, one of my all-time favorite poems is called "This Be the Verse." And those lines don't appear in the poem anywhere. So that "this be the verse," that title of the poem, sort of stand as part of the poem. And so I love that idea of a cover of a comic book being that title of the poem. Like this is part of it. It's separate, but it's part of it. Like I'm telling you, this thing is going to get you here, but I'm fooling you into what's real. This scene is never actually going to be in there, And so I find that really fascinating.
Yeah.
So I mean, as a marketing tool, it's great. I definitely would want to.
Don't judge a book by its cover, Tony. Don't judge
always
a book by its cover.
I mean, I was very specific with my cover.
If we were judging the book by its cover, we'd be like, "This is the best story ever told."
Correct. I mean, this is of all the covers we've seen. I mean, because the one about Mary Jane and the last one where it's like Tiger. Like that's not even the best Mary Jane drawing either. I mean, that is like it's fine, but like this is so good and it's not Bagley, right? So it's not.
No, it's not a Bagley. No.
Right, and so it's not America's ass, right? I mean, it's not, the pants aren't as tight and all of that other stuff. But that's what makes it even more appealing to like the eye is like, because Ock has them. They're like their pants, you know what I mean? It's like Ben and Peter look beatable the way that they're drawn in here, where the way Bagley draws Ben, it's like unbeatable, like, or you can't be beat. You know what I mean? Like there's sometimes people draw stuff. So, but anyway, yeah, It's fine. I understand what it is. I just like I struggle with some of these things that were clearly cash made. Let's back for more cash.
Sure.
So that's all. But I get it. I get where it's going.
Capitalism. Capitalizing.
I think these 3 issues have one good issue of really important material that we could have moved on. Now, when Tony was listing all the things earlier, that a 6-part miniseries with all the extra stuff that we could have done, that I think would have been better. It needed to either be longer or shorter. This 3, like you said, Dan, it's in and out, but that's actually I think works against
That's
it.
interesting.
You don't give us a chance.
I was actually going to say, Dan, I think you called it the fact that it's short, sweet, to the point that we only get 3 issues. I think that works in its favor, right? Because I think any more would be too much. Any less wouldn't be worthy of the death of Dr. Octopus, right? I think. Yeah. But again, this is this is where I'm saying, and maybe it's too. This is also try hard, because do we really need all? Like, we need to raise the stakes. We need to show some love to Doc Ock. But if we do too much, but all of the missed opportunities in here, this is where they could have tried harder, right?
Yes. Yeah, the one that they didn't try hard in. The one they could have tried harder. Yeah, I think these 3 arcs do work very well together. There is this through line of Kaine killing off the supervillains, and we will see kind of more of that in the response from the supervillain community, because there's this crazy guy fucking killing us. What are we going to do? How do we do this? How do we handle this? And I like that kind of through line through all of these, and that's kind of why I put them together in the ordering. I felt that this fit quite well together as a kind of an arc of arcs, if you will. It is what it is. I absolutely get the criticisms, but again, if it was 4 issues, would we be complaining as well? Possibly. We might be complaining that it was too long, or they've stretched it out. So, 3 issues seems strange. 2 issues would also feel strange. But I don't know. But it did what it needed to do for me. It's an action thing that kind of falls in, and again we get a bit more. It's not as kind of a sudden departure of Ock and then moving on. Like, we don't. It's like, because I think going forward in the books, this is outside the books, but in the books they do just kind of carry on. They do, in our next podcast we'll discuss it, but they do just go right. Next bit, next thing, next story. Let's go. Let's move on. What's the next thing? The next threat? Whatever. There's one thing I just wanted to mention before we finish. There's a moment where the arms go haywire and Spidey destroys them, pulls them apart. And I wondered if this was a continuity error, because I remember around in the 90s, Ock was using adamantium arms. Now, they were created in the 80s in a Frank Miller comic, and he kind of goes back and forth from using them a little bit. It depends. But recently, in a Spider-Man story in the kind of early 90s, Eric Larson, the artist who created Savage Dragon for Image Comics, he drew Doc Ock soundly defeating the Incredible Hulk with his adamantium arms. Now, this, your friend and our friend Peter David, who was writing the Hulk, took issue with this. And he wrote an issue where the Hulk turns up and finds Dr. Octopus, and he goes, I must have been having an off day when you defeated me with your adamantium arms. And then he literally, like, Doc Ock's like struggling with him, and he literally just like flicks it and knocks him out entirely, which is a kind of an interesting thing that kind of happens with comic book writers. When you have a comic book hero that you're writing defeat another comic book hero, the person who is writing the other comic book hero is like, my character would never do that. That would never happen to the character I'm writing. So they write a response. There was a famous Garth Ennis comic book where the Punisher, rolls a steamroller over Wolverine and shoots his dick off. And so the guy writing Punisher was like, right, well, writing Wolverine, was like, well, I'm going to make Punisher look stupid now. So he has an issue where Wolverine absolutely trounces the Punisher and then finds that he's got gay porn magazines in his bag. And he's like, what are you reading these for, Frank? And he's like, that's research. That's research. That's research.
That's low.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Wow.
So there's it does happen. It does happen. And again, Stan Lee says it right. These battles, these superhero battles, it depends on who the writer is and on who wants to win. It's down to them.
So
and the
are you saying that Drake and Kendrick read all of this and were like, what if?
What if we had a beef? What if we had a beef?
That's fun. I love it. I mean, Ben Folds actually has a song where called "Brainwashed," and in there he says maybe that he and the other person are getting in a fight using pop songs. He says maybe next time we should just have a dance off.
Yes.
Instead of throwing barbs back and forth with pop songs. So anyway, I love that. And I don't remember that. I honestly, I have never seen that read, but you know how I feel about Peter.
I'll put it on the video. I'll put it on the video version.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll put it on the video version. I think it was a Joe Fixit thing at the time. I think
there's no way Joe Fixit is not losing to Doc Ock.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's the Professor Hulk, but he's pretending to be Joe Fixit. I think if I remember rightly.
Layers.
So yeah, there's a lot of layers going on. But is there anything else we want to say before we finish for today? We've talked a lot of supervillain deaths. We've talked a lot of killing, a lot of pregnancies, a lot of ghosts and other stuff. Lots of weird and wacky things today. But anything else we want to say?
I love that you brought up the continued recurrence of Spider-Man having 8 limbs. When it comes to like the mutant or the mutation syndrome where he actually grows limbs. Yeah, the man spider syndrome where he actually grows limbs. This is where we see him don Doc Octopus's limbs. The future Civil War where he gets the steel spider suit where he's got the limbs. And then in one of the Spider-Verse comics where he has a more mechanical robotic Doc Ock costume. I love that. I had no idea there was an action figure where he was wearing Doc Ock's limbs, but I always love the incarnations where they give Spider-Man 8 limbs and actually make him a spider and show what he can do.
Well, issue 100, Amazing Spider-Man, he takes a potion that he creates to cure him of being Spider-Man, and it makes him grow an extra 4 arms. I love that. Classic. And only Morbius's blood can cure him, if I remember rightly. Proper classic.
That checks out.
And we're almost about. We're very close. We're going to hit 400 very, very soon. Big deal, big issue. We're going to talk about it. Will it be retconned? You're damn well sure it will be. But we're going to get there. We'll talk about it. But yes, and that is when the Clone Saga was officially supposed to finish, and that will be in the next podcast. We're doing, I think it's Players and Pawns, Smoke and Mirrors. And that includes issue 400 of The Amazing Spider-Man. And we will see our favorite Gerry Conway creation finally return. Miles Warren is back as the Jackal. And boy, howdy, has he got some information for us to reveal. We're going to talk about it. Thank you again, guys. And as always, everybody, prepare for Prattle.